I think probably a good thing to remember, mate, is debt is fuel of the system, and we're running out of road with the way that the fiat currency system is. So you really need to get your head around that and plan for your future, mate, because gold is God's money, mate. It's been here forever and it'll be here forever.
He was flat broke, knee deep in mining jobs, and juggling bills just like his mom did with dog eared envelopes. But Mr. Rodney Bull didn't just escape the money trap, he exposed it. And today, Rodney Bull helps everyday Aussies build real wealth, freedom, and legacy outside of this broken system. We're here on the Best Selling Author Podcast with Pat Mesiti. We're brought to you by the book Stories of Strength, where Rodney Bull and Pat Mesiti have this excellent book, and Rodney discusses money and getting out of the debt situation people find themselves in, traditional finance, exposing money myths, and just shaping yourself a better future and legacy, and making the most of your time on this planet and having fun and seeking fulfillment. So, Mr. Rodney Bull, nice seeing you. How are you?
Good morning, Robert. How you going, mate? I'm real good, Cobber. Bloody good to be on that podcast with you.
Heck yeah, and I'm excited to speak with you about this book you've written with Pat, plus everything else you have going on, because money makes the world go round, and it can really just take over your emotions, and it can really run your life. But hopefully we can outsmart money, or at least play the game a little better than the average person. But you tell me, what are you all about, and what is your relationship with money?
Well, I'm about trying to share the truth and get the information out there to wake people up to how the system is actually works, mate, and how you can play the game and get the system to work to your benefit as opposed to the benefit of the people who design the system, mate.
Ooh, okay. Well, you hear a lot about money, how like the compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, and you have to imagine that you figure the average person doesn't really think long term, do they? They just look at the monthly payment. They don't look at maybe the debt they're accumulating or the future that they're sabotaging. And what do you think people need to hear these days? What should we know about to get ourselves woken up?
Oh, you're dead right about the compounded interest being the eighth wonder of the world. The sad part is I think it's on another world now, because it's been quite some time since we've received any sort of interest on our money with the banks. So that one's probably gone by the wayside these days.
Sure.
In regards to that, mate, definitely it affects people's choices in life, and humans are very emotional, so get bound up in all of that. And unfortunately, with the lack of education that most of us have around money and currency and the financial system and how it all works, we end up making some bad decisions that don't take us down good roads. And ultimately, like you said, people don't really think too far into the future. Unfortunately, people have a very short mindset and attention span these days. But I would say, honestly, for me, probably a starting point is to really understand what the differences are between money and currency, mate.
Ooh, okay. So what are those differences?
Well, money itself, real money, gold and silver, mate, which has been money in the human space for well over 5,000 years, and currencies is what most people class as money today, which is once upon a time was cash notes, 50s and hundreds and $20, $5 bills, but coins as such. But that's less and less these days. It's all pretty much used tap and go with their card and digital currencies, and even now cryptocurrencies. But real money is gold and silver, mate. It's God's money. It was here since the beginning of time, and it'll be here at the end of time. Real money should hold value and wealth over long periods of time, and currency just doesn't do that, mate. Currency is just like a melting ice cube, because ultimately with gold and silver, it takes labor and effort, for hard work for people to be able to pull it out of the ground and produce it. So it has a scarcity aspect to it, and proof of work. And whereas currencies can just be printed infinitely, and which is exactly what's going on today, has been for quite some time. And the more they print it, the less it's worth.
Oh yeah, and even worse than printing, right? Because you figure a few decades ago they'd have to print physical money, but now they can just add the ones and zeros to the computer system, and then cryptocurrency they can just even invent a brand new currency. And I remember when I was a kid, the bank where I had money, the branch was robbed, and I remember thinking, "Oh no, did the bank robbers like reach into like my one cubby hole and pull my money out?" My mother was like, "No, your money isn't actually there." And I started, it blew my mind, right? This idea that they assign a number and they figure, hey, it's worth this. And it really seems like it takes the freedom away from us. And so if someone says, all right, Mr. Rodney Bull, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. The living paycheck to paycheck, debt accumulating, not getting what I want, just being miserable. This shouldn't be what life's all about. And if you have a better way, I mean, what is it? Should someone look into like paying off their debts, living within their means, acquiring gold and silver? What's the path forward?
Oh, for sure, mate. It's all of that, and it's just a matter of getting yourself to a point of truly understanding what the difference is between real money and currency. And like ultimately we have to function within the financial system, and that's how we get paid and how we pay all our bills and our debts is through the government printed currency. And so you have to earn your wages in that aspect, but you certainly shouldn't save in that aspect. You know, famous saying by a very famous man, Mr. Robert Kiyosaki, has always said for the longest time that savers are losers, and you just need to understand the context of that. And he's talking about people saving in fiat currency, and like I said before, it's just a melting ice cube. So there's no point saving in fiat currency. So you should be, in my opinion, this certainly isn't financial advice, mate, but just in my opinion and my experience in life, if you really want to build true wealth and save your hard-earned dollars over the long run, I would strongly suggest that you turn it into gold and silver, mate, and that will maintain your wealth and build your wealth over a long period of time.
Of
And
course.
as far as debt goes, mate, yeah, you definitely need to work on getting out of debt, and so ultimately it comes down to education around money in the financial system and the banking system, because there's two types of debt. There's good debt and there's bad debt, and ultimately you want to be in the good debt. We all have and carry a certain amount of bad debt, but the sooner you can get out of that, the better.
Okay. And what is that good and bad debt? You have to wonder, perhaps good debt is like a mortgage or something more responsible, and maybe bad debt's like high interest or variable. But you tell me, what's good or bad debt?
Well, for a start, I guess bad debt would be things like credit cards and pay now, pay later, zip pay and all them sorts of things. They're huge interest rates. I'm not sure what they are in America, but here in Australia, our credit card interest rates can be up to like 25, 26%, which is huge, And then as opposed to good debt would be things like not necessarily your mortgage, but more along the lines of like investment properties, and that are actually cash flowing. So they're cash flow positive, so they cover all the costs and pay back the mortgage for you and actually put a profit into your pocket on a weekly or monthly basis.
All right, put your money to work. So you're saying gold and silver and investment properties and pay down or get rid of this bad debt, the credit card debt. And it's easy for people to make excuses, right? Someone can say, "Oh, well, Rodney has this plan." That's easy for him to say, but what about my situation? But my understanding is you've come a long way, haven't it? So can you tell us about what your money story was like, what it was like growing up, and what you've evolved into?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I grew up out in the bush on a big cattle station in Western Queensland in Australia, mate. And it was a lot of hard work, very dusty, hot, lots of flies, and yeah, worked very hard for not a lot of money. My parents worked very hard and done their very best to provide for us kids, and taught us how to work hard and try to do the best things that you can with your money. But same thing, they only had very limited financial education in their lives as well, mate, as most of us are, because it's purposely been kept out of our education system. Sadly, we've been purposely not taught about money and finances. So Yeah, I just charged along through life, bumbling along, working hard and doing silly things with my money in the early days when I was a young fellow, as most of us do. But once I met my wife and started building a family and had more responsibilities, so and then got a mortgage and cars, all that sort of stuff. Ended up working and working, and money's coming in and it's going out the other side just as fast as it's coming in. And a lot of weeks there's not as much. There's more month left at the end of the month than there is money. So I just was always dubious and skeptical of how it worked and why it worked the way that it worked, but didn't understand it, and came to a realization a number of years ago now that it was probably more to the point that it was my lack of understanding education. So I went on a mission to go and educate myself about it, and found some fantastic people from all around the world to learn from. And then ultimately, ever since I done that, mate, and started down that road, designing systems for myself to be able to manage my money better and get myself out of bad debt, and ultimately save outside of the fiat currency system, it has been life changing for me and continues to be. Like, I'm no millionaire, mate, still just an Aussie battler, but it has really, really changed around my mindset and actually my financial situation in life.
Ooh, I like it. And you mentioned this concept of like fear taking over, right? If you don't have a system like what you've developed, then you can just end up making all sorts of weird, crazy decisions, right? All sorts of things that don't make sense in hindsight, or keeping up with the Joneses. And so when you say that you figured out a system for your money, does that mean rules? Does that mean a budget? What does the system look like?
Yeah, all of them, mate, all of them. Ultimately, there's probably too much to it for me to actually explain here, and this is why I'm building a financial education business and have courses and programs and stuff for people to be able to do, so that they can really see it on paper and get to really understand it, so that they can implement it in the way that they need to, and make changes in their life, and ultimately change their mindset around money and debt and savings, and actually looking to plan further out into the future. But it's definitely getting to understand that first and foremost, mate, is that difference between real money and currency. Otherwise, you're just never going to go anywhere.
Right. So there's real money and there's currency. And I'm glad that you brought up this concept of the mindset, because you're mentioning these guys like Robert Kiyosaki, and I can only imagine how the company you keep sure plays quite a part, right? If you're around a lot of miserable broke people, then their habits will rub off on you. But if you get educated as you have, and you get these mentors and you know about what's possible, that can be exciting. And so if someone is cleaning up their financial situation, and if they're on a path towards building their generational wealth and their legacy, like, what is possible? What is on in the future for you, or just what has you excited about money moving forward?
Oh, mate, a lot of things actually, but ultimately being able to sleep well at night, knowing that my savings in life are outside of the system, so it doesn't matter what happens in the financial system or the banking system. I know that my money can't disappear, and for chasing goals and dreams in life, I'm getting closer and closer to them every day, especially my big ones, and ticking them off the small ones along the way. And so it's a real sense of security that you gain from saving in the right money, and building true wealth, and ultimately aiming for legacy long term, past the end of my life, mate, into my children's and my grandchildren's and coming generations, and to build the right mindset and the education and the understanding around money, and just what that can and will do for you in life over a long time.
Oh yeah. Well, the lesson I'm getting from you is that it's not all about you for a number of ways, right? Like who will it benefit? Will it benefit your kids? And then also solving these life problems. You really can't solve it on your own, right? You need to get educated. And if you have a spouse, a partner, if you have kids, they can be a good reason why. And then they are the people that you then pass on your good examples and your knowledge to. So that's wonderful. And you mentioned about these hopes and dreams. Do you have anything to share with us specifically about what your future hopes and dreams are?
Ultimately, mate, with my own podcast, I'm looking to reach as many people as I possibly can and help educate as many people as I possibly can through what I will share on my podcast and the people that I will bring on to interview on my podcast, who some of them people are just truly amazing in what they know and how they can educate you. And ultimately through my financial education business, and then ultimately long term, I have a small acreage property currently, but aiming to achieve to end up with a large acreage property, mate, and get into regenerative farming and build a long term business there that my children and grandchildren can be able to build off of as a good foundation for them to stand on and chase their own goals and dreams in life, mate.
Very cool. Combining the old with the new, right? You have your farming roots, and now there's kind of, building it towards the future and these techniques. And so you have this podcast that you have going that's sort of new that you've started and having fun with it. And have there been any difficulties there? Because sometimes people have like the imposter syndrome and they say, oh, well, yet another financial podcast. How can I stand out? Or they have like public speaking hesitation. But what has that process been like for you making your podcast?
Yeah, it's been really interesting, mate. And you hit the nail on the head as far as imposter syndrome goes. Um, Never had a problem speaking to people, and done a little bit of public speaking throughout my life at different times. Not a great deal, but there certainly has been a little bit of imposter syndrome to deal with in the beginning. I was, overcoming that now more and more, better and better all the time. Settling into being able to have conversations like we're here having here today, and it's a fantastic platform. It really is. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, and gain a lot of knowledge and a lot of insight, and it's a fantastic platform for that and for ultimately for networking. It really is.
Oh yeah, and that last part is huge, isn't it? It's not just about the content. If it was, you would just be sitting and recording videos, but there's also these guests and the conversations, and like you and I are doing here, right? We have the witty banter we play across each other, and it's a nice way to help other people out. They help you. You make new friends. It's all great. There's so much upside, and so you're saying as far as overcoming that imposter syndrome, sometimes you just have to just do it and work through it, and it won't get solved overnight. But the more you do it, the more evidence you've collected that, hey, I'm a pretty dang good podcaster. I can do this. And I don't know what I was so nervous about when I first had this idea. And so we've been jumping around all kinds of interesting stories and ideas, right, about money and your future. But I want to make sure that in these final minutes, we focus on you, Mr. Rodney Bull, and what's important to you. So do you think in our conversation, could there be a missing question that I should ask you, I just don't know to ask you?
Oh, that's an interesting one. That's a good question in itself, Robert. It really
Thank
is.
you.
A missing question. Well, I guess ultimately for me, as much as I've gone down the rabbit hole, and it's a deep rabbit hole, and educating myself around money and finances and the financial system and the banking system and all of that, how it all works to ultimately improve my place in life. You got to stop and realize that as much as it really controls a big part of our life, it's not the be all and end all. Ultimately, you really want to be looking for real peace of mind and calm in your life. Be chasing true happiness, mate. And ultimately, that for me is spending time doing the things that I love doing. Going out hunting with my dogs and riding horses and going out and spending time at the river or at the beach with my family. So it's more than anything, mate, that to me. But if you can get your head right and your finances right, that will allow you to be able to really ultimately pursue what I believe we're all pursuing here in life, and what we're here for is, to live free, mate, and to live the way that you want to live, and hopefully manage to build a legacy, and not just in a financial aspect, mate. Build a legacy in the ways of love and happiness, and good mindset and education throughout generations.
Oh yeah, that's all important stuff. And they say that money can't buy happiness, but it probably solving the money problem probably is that stepping stone to freedom, right? That, as you say, money isn't the be all end all, so it's important to not get sidetracked there, but you do need to earn a living somehow, right? You need to pay things off. That way you can go hunting or hang out with your dogs or your family. And it's so important to take this seriously and to have a plan and to take some action. And if someone is lost, confused, misguided, lacking motivation, all those things, and they might say, hey, this guy Rodney Bull is someone that I need to sit up and pay very close attention to because he can help me. And so if someone is thinking that, who is your type of person? Who is the person with the problem that you can help solve? And if they have that problem, where should they go?
Where should they go? They should head over and have a listen to the Rodney Bull Show, my podcast, mate, or head to www.rodneybullshow.com, mate, and come and check things out. Get yourself a bit of real, true education from a good old Aussie battler, mate, who's fought his way through and now on the up and up.
Very nice. From a real authentic guy who tells it like it is. And that is therodneybullshow.com. And this podcast was born from a sincere desire to take Rodney's ever-developing financial education and place it within easy reach of his fellow hardworking countrymen and countrywomen. And that's the Rodney Bull Show. You can find that where podcasts are available, therodneybullshow.com. And you can also check out the excellent book that Mr. Rodney Bull co-authored with Pat Mesiti at storiesofstrengthbook.com. And then you can click over to Amazon, get a copy in Kindle or paperback, and check out the financial advice that Rodney Bull has to teach you from the stories and the trials and tribulations that he's overcome. So that is therodneybullshow.com. But before we go there, Mr. Rodney, it's time for the ends segment of our podcast where it's a little scary because I tried to stump you. I tried to put you on the spot by asking you about a fun or interesting quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as a fun or interesting quote or lesson?
Well, ultimately, I think probably a good thing to remember, mate, is debt is fuel of the system, and we're running out of road with the way that the fiat currency system is. So you really need to get your head around that and plan for your future, mate, because gold is God's money, mate. It's been here forever and it'll be here forever.
Yes. So time to take this seriously, time to get on a better track, a different path, and you can begin that journey by going to therodneybullshow.com. He gives you the truth about money they never taught you, and he has this home of financial freedom achieved through education and open-mindedness. You can walk with this salt of the earth man, Rodney Bull, and he will guide you forward on a pathway of economic empowerment, and you will never look back. TheRodneyBullShow.com. Find out about him and the podcast. Mr. Rodney Bull, it's been such an education and a fun, enjoyable time speaking with you. Thanks for being here.
Awesome, Robert. It's been bloody great here having you on here today too, Cobber.